Well, morning everybody. Hope you're having a good morning. This is Talking Niagara. Now I've got to do an intro video because actually you can add intro videos nowadays. All right, so
Yes.
meaning to do an intro video. One of these days I'll actually sit down and play with a little bit of flash and music and put an intro video together.
Yeah. Well, don't forget, I'll compose the music. I'll be like really original. Like it'll go like, "We are the champions. We are the champions. We are the champions of Talk Radio Niagara." Extremely original.
Yay! Yep. And good morning, Mr. Cushman. Oh, and that's the first thing it should say. We are the champions of Talking Niagara, and we welcome, among others, Mr. Mike Cushman. All right. So, there we go. So, we got a bit more on the more casinos in Niagara. Jim Diodati's basically saying he's happy that the province is looking at the current model in the Falls, and he's also saying that we've got multiple resolutions over successive councils requesting that we be the gaming capital of Canada and utilize gaming to leverage tourism and bring in competition. We're saying this model doesn't work. Gaming is dying in Ontario. It's getting old. It's getting stale, and it's going to become irrelevant. All right. This is Jim Diodati is using that as a leverage to actually say we want to get more casinos.
Well, yeah, compete, bring in more casinos, that brings more people. But I have a question for everyone, and that is the ethics of gambling. And you may poo-poo me, say that's an old religious thing. Remember, gambling was is a sin in religious terms, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the ethics of making most of your money from gambling, where 80% of the effects where it, and I'll state this, that the proportion of revenue from gambling, from problem gambling, and this is from Grio Institute. This states that in many cases, 80% of the effects or the revenue in this case are derived from 20% of the causes for the most engaged or the most engaged consumers. For the specific forms of consumption, such as different forms of gambling, this ratio will skew one direction or the other. You cannot have a casino that makes money unless you have problem gamblers. Yeah. And when the OLG, I wrote an article, an opinion article for the review. I called the casino the Temple of Mammon. Mammon is that which the cruel god of money that keeps it just out of reach of people who keep going for it.
Yes. So next week you'll have the money, won't you? Next week. Yeah. Yeah.
And this is the problem I have with gaming. You cannot be profitable without problem gamblers. Now, when I wrote an article for the review many years ago, I pointed out in that particular case, the OLG had asked for a study be made or a paper be written. They didn't like it. I forget the authors. I could find them again. They found in their study that 4.8% of those people, 4.8%, you derive 35% of your revenue. If you eliminate the problem gamblers, So you get 100 people coming to the casino, and if you take out that 5% of those people, if you can identify them as problem gamblers, your revenue will decrease by 1/3, more than 1/3. Casinos need problem gamblers.
Yeah.
Most of those people you see in the casino are not problem gamblers. But if you go down to Vegas, you'll see them sometimes. You'll see them sitting in front of a machine, hitting it over and over and over again for hours at a time, waiting for it to pay off. That's a problem gambler. I've some of my neighbors started going to the casino over and over again just to watch because it was exciting. People were there all the time, and they started having gambling problems. And it's a hard thing to admit. The Chinese community has found a very difficult gambling, I think, is more part of their culture than other cultures. When particularly an old widower, a Chinese man that was born in China, goes to the casino, will start going to the casino because there's people there and he's not lonely. They will find that grandpa starts getting himself more and more in debt. And we've heard, I mean, you hear words like people were wearing Attends and sort of adult diapers so they could stay on a machine over and over again. They even had a withholding cell in the first casino to hold problem gamblers that flipped out. And of course, the suicide rates are up. That's my problem with all of this, is we are going to find...
You're not wrong, because with more casinos, the problem gamblers will be even more problematic. I'm not saying there'll be an increasing number of them, but you see, what will end up happening is you'll get them going from the Casino Niagara to the Falls View, to the first one on Lundy's Lane, to the second one on Lundy's Lane, to the third one on Lundy's Lane, then across to the other one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and these are typically, and when I did the research for the article the last time, and I found the same thing here, is they have a number of studies. And what is very difficult, first thing, how to identify a problem gambler, because problem gamblers are not likely going to try to admit or cooperate with any study.
Yeah.
Problem gamblers see gambling like a recreational drug. The problem is most of us can take that gambling as a recreational drug and not get hooked. But there are segments of the population that are compulsive gamblers. They can't stop. Now, if you take problem gamblers in that article that I read, it basically split up those problem gamblers into chronic and other forms of compulsive gambling, where, like, the chronic gambler is going to steal your grandmother's china set and sell it just so that they can get enough money to start. Not a whole lot different from a drug addict. In fact, they act the very same way. And so here's in British Columbia, researchers found that 46% of its revenue came from 5% of the players, with 82% of the bets being placed by 20% of the most active players. Another study, online poker players found that 1% of the players accounted for 60% of the playing volume. Do we really? This is like giving smokers more tobacco or alcoholics more alcohol.
Yeah, here,
yeah. I have a great ethical, like, casinos don't do much for me. They look like big giant arcades. I don't like, although I have to say that most of my friends that come into town, they want to go to the casino. They like the casino.
Yeah.
That is the last place I would like to go.
Yeah, but you see,
it's just a big giant arcade to me.
the thing is that one of the things my mother earned when I was a kid was she earned from people gambling. So she collected football pools, and she earned her commission from the football pools. So she never made a great deal of money, but we used to do. When I say we used to do the football pools. It wasn't we did them. We weren't betting on the pools. We were collecting the money from the pools, and passing them on to the organization that does all that stuff, right? There's a kind of whole mechanism to collect those pools and get the money in, and we were part of that. And of course, the one thing that we knew right from the that I knew as a kid was that gambling only pays for those that collect the money.
That's right. Now you could come and you can game and risk your money, like most ordinary people take what $100 or something and go, and then when that's gone, they're finished. Or sometimes you get lucky. And a friend of mine went to the casino when she later visited me, and she was with her, stayed with her cousin. She won $700. Do you think she's not going to go the next time?
Oh yeah.
So
she won $700.
And when I was in Vegas on a course, when I was on Vegas in a course, there was the whole room of guys went out to gamble, of course, the whole class, when we were in Vegas. And the teacher took everybody outside. Particularly, we wanted to point out to the young guys there. Most of us were mature millwrights, but he took everybody outside, and he says, "Look there." And we're right beside the airport. And there's planes coming in and planes going out. You see that plane coming in? He'd tell the young guys, that's people full of with pockets full of money. See that plane leaving? That's people whose pockets are empty. So he wanted to make that point that even when they were teaching these courses where people had never gambled before or something, some of the students were getting themselves into big problems just by coming there for a course.
Yeah.
And discovering gambling for the first time and getting behind. That's how dangerous it can be.
And the whole thing about Vegas is you can have, in comparison to many other cities around the world, you can have half-price conference rooms or even quarter-price conference rooms in Vegas, because they know they're going to make their money from your attendees gambling. So they offer you good deals on hotel rooms, good deals on on the accommodations, good deals on food, because they know they're going to get their money back.
And the cab driver could take you to a brothel really fast. He can tell you all the different brothels that are the best place to get,
most likely,
where somebody will turn a trick for you. But the first thing they want to do is take you to a bar where there's women, because they can soak a lot more money out of you without actually even those bars where you get drunk and the women know how to play the most amount of money out of you, particularly young guys. But Vegas is something different in all. Like, I have no interest in Vegas at all, except the fact that they have a lot of entertainment there, some unique entertainment. And that's all one of the attractions to bring people in. My biggest point, we want more gambling halls here. And that, to me, is an admission that we cannot grow our economy in other ways. Now, I understand the idea of more gambling halls coming here, more competition. Mayor Jim Diodati says gambling is dying. Casino and gambling is dying. It isn't really, but casinos are. Gambling is picked up online.
Yeah.
That to me
going
is
other directions. Absolutely.
More of a sin.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that to me is a huge problem. And these are really drug dealers, online drug dealers, basically. They find it really good because they can put up a gambling site and they don't have to even come to you and give you a substance. They are, I don't know, I believe that this is not an ethical and moral way to expand your economy. I understand that it pays big, but I also understand it necessitates problem gamblers.
It does. It
Just
does.
like your corner bar needs the regulars. You know what I mean?
Yep. Oh yeah.
It needs problem gambling. Most of the study says you cannot make like a good pile of your revenue comes from a small amount of the population, and even and they've done. The problem is, as I said before, what I was trying to say is to discover the problem gamblers and get them to admit it, so that you can do a study, and then have the same parameters of other studies, and that's a big problem. How the Australians define a problem gambler and how the Americans do. The Australians, for a time, were looking at only the chronic gamblers, not the other sort of ones in the same orbit that are problem gamblers, but not quite chronic gamblers. You know, the guy that goes after work, goes down and he spends a lot of money at the casino.
Well, I was going to say,
but he doesn't get all upset and jump into into the falls.
Yeah.
Now here it says in now they're trying to say like as of like 2019 that France, Canada, and Germany point out that France 40.2%, Canada 31.6%, and Germany 23% of the gambling revenue comes from problem gamblers. In 2016, Canada was 42%. And yet, if you go all the way back to 2012, where there wasn't too many casinos, Canada was only 5.7%. You see what I mean? The more you offer a problem with problem gambling, the more they're going to do it.
I think
this is not just the addiction to fast food that we go ahead.
No, I was going to say a lot of these are people who will have a good job in, say, somewhere like Toronto. They work diligently all week, but what they do is they then come, Friday night, Saturday night, or Saturday, they come to the casino in Niagara, and they're sat there the whole weekend, gambling away.
Yeah, and then go back to their job.
Yeah, and then go back on Monday morning to their jobs, and that's it. That's their life for them, and they basically
they carry a debt, and they carry a debt.
Yeah, but they pay their rent, they pay their mortgage, etc. But every weekend they're back at the in the casino, and to them it won't matter.
It's very much similar to alcoholics. If you've ever, I had to go to a counselor once because of someone I knew was appearing to be an alcoholic. The counselor told us of different kinds of alcoholics, and it goes for gambleholics too. You get the one that just is the wino, the what we typically call the wino, the step over on the street alcoholic that just as soon as they get some money, drink until they're obliterated and lose everything. Then there is the weekend alcoholic, the one that once the weekend comes just binges all weekend and then is able to hold itself together for the rest of the week. There is the after work alcoholic, that same thing sort of thing, withdraws as soon as they get back from work, then they drink continually throughout the day, but manage to hold on to a job. There are all kinds of different alcoholics. There's the binge drinker and all that, but they all are problem drinkers.
Yeah.
And that is kind of what problem gamblers are in the same sort of zone. You get your chronic gambler that will just steal everything from grandma and go to the casino, and they are at risk of suicide. That's why we have more suicides here. One of the reasons why. And then you get the other ones that as I've described.
And that's one of the reasons why Mike says, well, we might as well set up a diving board at the falls. Right. And
yeah, I think again, I said something similar last week.
Yeah. And again, Peter Biker says that's why they can name their price. Yep. Right. Okay.
Yeah. So every time we get revenue from, go ahead.
No. So with that, anything else is what I was asking.
Yeah. Basically, do we really, by expanding the casinos, I can understand the business case. Expand this casinos, take away the monopoly. That makes perfect sense. But how much? This is also an admission that you cannot bring in other kinds of economic stimulants. You can't bring in manufacturing. You can't bring in other sorts of traditional economic wherewithal. That you have to rely on gambleholics or problem gamblers. And every casino that goes up knows that it cannot survive without problem gamblers. And every pile of money we get from the casino for our city, there's a lot of pain in that money.
Yeah.
A lot of that money has come from problem gamblers. I just really have a very difficult time with that. Even though I have friends that have good jobs in the casinos, they're reliant on those jobs. And the casinos itself will try to tell you that it sets aside a bunch of money for problem gamblers. But it's kind of like Seagram's putting aside money for alcoholic treatment. You're always going to get that alcoholic. You're going to need that alcoholic, So I don't know. It's just I don't know. It's just something that bothers me.
All right. Anyway. Let's move on. An incident in women's washroom leading to security cameras potentially at Oaks Park. And this is something was brought up by Councillor Patel. She was saying last week or week before there was an incident at women's washroom. A male was in the washroom and I think harassing women and families, and got some phone calls about it. We had emails from 1 or 2 residents and they've asked for security cameras in there. And Jim Diodati is basically saying, well, security cameras are significantly better in quality and significantly lower price than they used to be. So it's something that they're going to be looking at. Kathy Moldenhauer, who's the city's general manager for recreation, culture and facilities, saying her staff are working towards with information system staff to see where outdoor security cameras can be installed in Oaks Park. Does that necessarily stop the incident?
We have Gary Wilkins. We have Gary Wilkins to thank. He was part of this. I think he was there when this happened. He may have even been the one that phoned Mona Patel. So Gary, thumbs up to Gary Wilkins. He told me about this when I was having some wings with him at the day that we gave the money to Rick Rose's son. Anyway, so Gary was there, and this, of course, is going to be a problem. And I don't know how the problem, it's good to have cameras, and just having cameras there is a thing that signals, tells people they can't get away with things like that. But you're looking at a place where there are a lot of vagrants, and I'm wondering if it was a vagrant like that. Obviously, somebody a little bit off their lid goes into the female washroom. Now, this bothers me a great deal because female places have to be safe, very, very safe. Yeah. Females are the vulnerable ones in our population, whether you like it or not. Once a young man hits 16 years old, he is now capable of overpowering half the human race. That's the differences between men and women physically. So women have to be safe. And now you could spill this over. I don't know if they have a washroom like I saw in some places where they have a man, a woman, and other. But we may find these problems going forward where men identifying as women go into women's washrooms. We don't want that either. Yeah, because women do not feel safe in those situations. So this is going to be a problem ongoing, I think. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a couple of comments in relation to this one, and it said when it's a benefit, the safety of the residents, the mayor makes it about money. Should have been done years ago. We all can see the city is much less safe than it used to be. And this is Tim making a comment on the review article. And Nick also makes a comment. I recently started running at Oaks Park, and he's saying a single water fountain that I found on the property doesn't work. He's asking about fixing that. Right. So, there are many issues there as well. Probably other issues as well in other places. And probably this issue isn't.
Yeah, this is unfortunate. Yeah, times are not the same as they used to be. And so, my hat's off to Gary for being there and as an eyewitness to all that. What can you do to protect women and your society and protect their private spaces? And I think this is a huge issue that going forward, we're going to have to make sure of this somehow. This is a public place, and can you imagine in a public place where there's people? So you would think that any person who decided to use a woman's washroom that was a male would think twice, but they did. But in this particular case, it didn't. So they jumped on this rather quickly, and they're going to put up cameras. Is that going to solve the problem? Let's hope it does. It will probably reduce. As soon as the cameras go up, people will kind of look at that, and hopefully those people who are men inclined to go into women's washrooms will think twice. I don't know. This is the world we're living in right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
remember, in developing countries, yeah, one of the things, and this is not and we don't want to have women ambushed in washrooms either. This is a possibility. In a lot of the developing countries, a lot of women don't go to school because in the country schools or when the young ladies go to the washrooms, they get ambushed in the washroom sometimes. So because they are vulnerable, they're young and so a washroom can be a very vulnerable place for women. That's why it has to be extremely safe.
Yeah.
Very, very safe.
Oh, and then that can't be.
Anyway, that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, and that can't be overstated. And cameras, I think probably. Well, biggest challenge with cameras, of course, is there are people then who go spray them up. With those spray guns, which means that they become wasted. Expenditure.
Yes.
Right. Okay, so yep, we got a few comments from there. So Laurie Parliament is basically who's monitoring the cameras? It's real-time monitoring or just evidence after the fact? That is actually a very good question, because real-time monitoring, you can send somebody out to it, and generally, typically, most of these are not, right? And that's a part of the problem. Okay. So another one, Mike points out this.
Yeah, there's nobody there consistently. If there was a little office, they could have somebody keep an eye on it, but they don't. So that's a good point.
Yeah, you don't need real-time monitoring. The people responding don't need to be on the site. You need real-time monitoring in a CCTV monitoring place. Right, that's what you need.
Well, really, who's going to do that? I think the fact that the cameras go up is incentive not to act poorly. And Laurie's probably right that there's nobody watching it. But why would they? They'd have to set aside a special person at a special time. And great question, Laurie.
The thing is about this one, though, is that as I'm talking about CCTV, do we want to set up a CCTV monitoring center where we have specialist cops that are looking out for, would-be robbers around, say, the tourist areas, around Lundy's Lane, around the popular areas where commercial enterprises are, and then these CCTV cameras can be included and monitored in that bundle?
I don't think so.
Anyway, just okay. But what Mike is saying here on the opposite side is that increased police patrols on foot and bike in Hamilton is showing that that's probably a better answer.
Police presence, you're right. However, I suppose to have a security person of some kind when they're having events at Oaks Park. But the thing is, Oaks Park has different times that people go there, and sometimes they might just go to walk around the track. And are they going to be safe going to the washroom?
Yeah,
at times when there's not a whole lot of people there.
And Gary makes the point. It took 18 911 calls till they came. That is a sad state of affairs when it comes to the police, and we can't rely upon the police anymore. And unfortunately, Gary, you're absolutely right. Randy West makes a point. Specialist cops earn about $100K per year. Policing is no longer any affordable answer.
But I don't think you need a cop here. You just need a security person. You need maybe a private security company or something like that you can hire, like the ones you see in the liquor store. You see people in the liquor store that are security people. So you need somebody like that. They don't need a gun. They should be trained in some means of which to restrain a person, or just having a person there. But how then you got to pay for it. And this particular person that Gary's talking about was a real problem, as the way he described it. And the cops, I think, heard the description of what it was and just thought, oh, well, that's not important.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Anything else on that? I think
except that we just really do have to pay some real practical ways in which to keep women's spaces safe.
Gary's got a unique solution. He says, it's safe because I'm always there. I won't tolerate anyone screwing with my park. And Randy is saying it's illegal to restrain any person at all if you're not law enforcement. And that is true as well. All right. Okay, so moving on.
I think we should change the name. I think we should change the name of the park to that from Oaks Park to Gary Wilkins' hangout place.
There you go. There you go. That sounds sleazy, though. That's a problem. And no disrespect to you, Gary.
No, I think
I'm not making any allegations. It just sounds sleazy the way you just said it. Right?
Hey, Gary, you know what? No wings for Peter. 1 year.
I won't have wings anyway. All right. Okay, so in her first meeting since returning from a 5-month suspension for comparing the Pride flag to the Nazi flag, Niagara Catholic School Board trustee Natalia Benoit is back in familiar territory, as she's basically calling for a ban on the Pride flag again.
Yeah, she really overdid it the first time. She compared the flag to a Nazi flag, and so she was banned. But she's back calling for the flag to be banned. Now, you might find this surprising, but I kind of agree with her. I don't think flags are appropriate. I don't think that it's not just the Pride flag, but any flag at all.
Any flag,
flag at all to political, any kind of cause, that kind of thing. You're going to be flying flags all over the place. And the other problem I have with the Pride flag is that it is not agreed upon by those people in that group that all bunched into that group, the LGBTQYZ, whatever it is. As I've said before, the lesbian, gay, and bisexual movement, at least the one in Britain, are wholly against that flag altogether. They do not want themselves to be grouped into with trans and the other two-spirit things and all that other thing. They don't want that. They don't want themselves grouped in with that. They don't identify with those people. Lesbians, gays, and bisexuals are men or women that find a sexual attraction within the same sex. Lesbians, of course, women to women. Gays, of course, between men and men. And bisexuals will dally one way or the other. They have two means by which they express themselves sexually. They usually do not agree with the kind of flag, and the flag keeps changing. So that in itself would, until somebody comes up with a flag that is acceptable by all these groups, I don't think they should use it, for one thing. I don't think that the straight population really understands what's going on among that fringe group of people in our society, and it's a fringe group not because it's unusual, but because it's so limited in population. And the next thing is, do you really want the schools to start getting involved in politics and issues of this kind? This is supposed to be something of acceptance. But
you see, here's the irony: is schools should be teaching politics and teaching about the need for people to think about politics, but they shouldn't be involved in politics.
And you're immediately assuming that everyone's in agreement with the flag. Or whatever statement you're trying to make. It's supposed to be a statement of inclusion and all that. And I don't think, and in a small group that finds itself excluded. Quite up. I don't think a school is a place for that. I don't. And as Paul Lemire and I have often said about flags and stuff that the city puts up one way or another, I think they shouldn't put up any flag at all, except for the city flag, the Ontario flag, and the Canadian flag.
Yeah, I'm in broad agreement with that the only flags that should go up is, in terms of the school board, would be the school board flag, the region flag, and the province and the nation. That's the only 4 flags that should go up.
Yeah, I
And
don't think
that
they
would
should.
resolve a lot of these issues, right? And the chair, Danny De Lorenzo, is saying that Benoit, as an elected official, has the option to actually raise motions about anything that she wants as many times as she wishes on the board, and it's not for anybody to comment about that right. How trustees vote is up to each individual trustee. And she has the right to bring forward the motions she does. I would generally say,
Yeah, so even though I wouldn't have agreed with this woman most of the time. I think by the way in which she talks and everything, I would never have considered the pride flag a Nazi flag.
No,
I would have trouble when you are supposed to put the flag up, that you have to put the flag up. If you don't put the flag up, you are necessary a bigot. Those are the kind of comments in society that I don't like. I don't think though that the pride flag should be a part of any school's flag to tell the world that they are an inclusive place. Well, they should be an inclusive place just because they're a school in Ontario, plain and simple, right? What are you going to do? Put a heterosexual flag up there to make sure that heterosexual people feel included? Are you going to put a flag that indicates that you are now accepting all different races and all different religions? That already happens. That is Ontario schools. To do this is to zero in on a group of a demographic group, and I don't really like the idea of putting a big spotlight on them, because I think there's a fear of more bigotry, I think, or more resistance, kind of. But I just think that the Ontario school, it should be without saying that the school is inclusive to everyone. Really,
it should be obvious the school is inclusive.
Just because it's not. Yeah, it doesn't have to say yes, we're inclusive. Hey, we're an Ontario school and we're inclusive. Yeah. So if you're gay or bisexual, you can come here. Well, they're going to go there anyway, and the law is protecting them.
That's why we have a Canadian flag to say we're inclusive. That's why we have an Ontario flag that says we're inclusive. That, in fact, we have laws that children have to go to school.
Yeah, so I don't like to have, like, too often it gets political, and I've said before, the pride flag is not universally accepted by this group that tends to be, in past years, tends to be marginalized. And I suppose the whole idea is to include them as a group. But the fact is that group is all segmented. And we as heterosexuals go marching down the road and saying, yes, this is the flag that tells everybody that we accept them. But those people who are grouped into that flag don't really accept the flag. Some do, some don't.
According to what was written in the Standard, Benoit is basically saying the motion wasn't about the pride flag, but a desire not to fly any flag. Like a Nazi flag, we don't want that either. Right? And
why do they bring up Nazi flag? Why the hell did they bring up Nazi flag? I mean, he's therefore Benoit is putting Nazi and pride in the same category. Of course not. I think the little town of Norval was, I think, among the first communities that said that's it, no more flags. And I think the school board has no business flying flags like that. It just isn't. Its business is to teach kids. That's all.
Yeah. I get rid of the flags, all of the flags. And
every one of them.
Yeah, and the only time it might well be permissible to have a flag into a a classroom when one is teaching about, when the flag might well be part of the teaching.
Mm-hmm.
But that is about it as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they could have different nations of the flag as part of his teaching thing. Maybe every week they could change the flag to a different flag of the world until they include them all. And at the beginning of the morning exercises, state to the children that is the flag of Ghana. There is the flag of Armenia. Today we have the flag of just as a learning tool, so kids can learn.
That's an entirely different thing. Yeah, that's an entirely different thing. Yeah. And we used to do that. We used to do that when I was in junior school because, for example, we'd have to recognize the flag. The flags of England, Scotland, Wales, the United Kingdom, and other parts of the world as well. So they went around like Europe, France, Germany, and taught us the flags. It was part and parcel of what we did in junior school. I remember that. So flags.
Yes.
It was a fun. I think fun lesson, those kinds of things, right?
Yeah, I think in the end, though, the school should be staying out of politics and staying out of these controversial issues, right? An Ontario school is inclusive just because it's an Ontario school. It doesn't need to tell everybody that it's inclusive. And and particularly, are you now going to fly the Black Panther flag, or now are you going to fly the the Chinese flag, or whatever area where you might find prejudice, you don't fly those flags.
Okay.
So I don't think it's the business of a school to fly flags like that. Their business is to just go on and teach and stay out of the controversy.
All right. Okay. So Laurie Parliament makes a point. You can't be inclusive if you keep segregating people into groups with labels. Very true.
Exactly. Thank you, Laurie. Thank you.
Right.
There's a tendency to group, break apart people. You are Black. You are, you're Chinese. You're Asian. You are gay. You are this. You are that. In these little pockets. Yeah. Well, the whole idea is we want to get away from those labels as much as practical.
Okay, so the trustee gets a pass from me. It's a Catholic school board, and pride is one of the 7 deadly sins according to their doctrine. Yeah. And Karen, good morning. Absolutely good morning. Bring back Elmer and the safety elephant flags.
Those, okay, we can go along with those. We can be inclusive to elephants, but I think others no.
Nazi and pride are in the same class or category so long as they can be displayed while the other cannot. As long as one can be
just get away from the politics. Just get away from that. Stick to teaching.
Yeah, we have truly come to the point where we can stop saying teaching the lesson, and we simply argue about teaching the lesson.
Yeah, good point.
Very good point, Randy. Subtle but very good. Let me put that one up for a few minutes more and let people ponder on that one. And I think also the other aspect here is that Laurie, I think people need to ponder on Laurie's statement about you can't be inclusive and keep segregating people into groups. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Inclusivity means that we should be talking about humanity and not individual parts of humanity.
Well, I don't know.
That kind of leads us into that leads us into our next thing, which is what you what you got this article about the new anti-Semitism, Antisemitism Today. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, we found like if you listen to Justin Trudeau when he's talked about when he on October 7th, and he talked about Zionism. You got to be you can be proud to say that you're a Zionist, and that he was very upset that Zionism was put out there as I don't know, people were complaining about it, and he disagreed with that. He felt that Zionism was, in effect, if you're an anti-Zionist, you're an anti-Semite. I don't agree with that at all, basically. Now, we found a huge spike in anti-Semitism before October 7th, but one of the reasons why that happened, like it's in the United States, the Anti-Defamation League, which tracks it, say that it was triple. Anti-Semitism was triple over the last year. But wait a minute. But they also changed the criteria for anti-Semitism to include anti-Zionism. Zionism is a political move. So if you're an anti-Zionist, if you complain about Zionism, you are classed as an anti-Semite, according to this. Well, that would have to take in over 1 million Jews, because 1 million Jews are anti-Zionist. I just watched last night a 20,000 Orthodox Jews, a video of them in a basketball court in Brooklyn denounce Zionism. They said Zionism is not the same as Judaism. They say that Zionism is not good for Jews overall. Now, would those 20,000 Orthodox Jews in that stadium now would be classified as anti-Semites?
Yeah.
See how foolish that is.
Yeah. And okay, so the Anti-Defamation League that keeps a track of these things said they were talking about it tripling in the US, but as you said, the criteria changed. So from 2019 to 2022, the amount of people with highly anti-Semitic activity doubled, right? But that, as you said, that's an irony because of the fact that anti-Zionism is included within the definition of anti-Semitism, and that's wrong.
Yeah, and I think, and the way that Trudeau spoke the other day, he did the same thing. He says he said he didn't like the idea that Zionism was bandied about as something bad. You could be anti-Zionist. I'm basically an anti-Zionist. Basically, I don't like the settler movement. That's a Zionist group. Remember, Zionism is split up into different categories too. Yeah. Zionism was a colonial movement, and the Jewish state has tried to identify anyone as an anti-Semite that is an anti-Zionist. However, this includes a lot of Jews. Like young Jews are now on the protest lines with Palestinians protesting occupation in the West Bank and the massacre that's happening in Gaza. So if young Jews are on there, are they also anti-Semites? And this article goes along and it talks about the traditional anti-Semite. Actually, the big spike in anti-Semitism seems to be the inclusion of anti-Zionism as anti-Semitism, and this is something that Netanyahu has spoken of, and unfortunately, our own prime minister has been drawn into this. Zionism is a completely different thing from Judaism, basically. The prime minister said that Zionism is something to do with future of the Jewish people, and that. No, it isn't. It is a political movement, It is completely removed from Judaism as Orthodox Jews claim it is. That's how they see it. And I kind of feel the same thing. Zionism is not integral with Judaism. And to say that you're anti-colonial, that's, if you're anti-settler, are you anti-Semite? Because they're Zionists with an idea of removing the land from Palestinians and taking it for themselves. Now, there's this also. This article is very good because it goes into the how anti-Semitism has sort of shown itself over time. Originally, it was a religious thing where the Christian church felt that Jews were responsible for Christ's death, which is kind of nuts because Jesus was a Jew. And but anyway, that's part of the problem. A little bit later on, it became a racial thing. And that was when it became very dangerous. Back in the day, if a Jew converted into Christianity, they're okay. They're fine now, according to the societies of the time. So if you have a Jew a Jew or a Muslim, like what was happening in Spain at the time, Jews and Muslims were given the Reconquista in around 1500 or so. Jews and Muslims were permitted to convert to Christianity. If they didn't, they had to get out of Spain. So you had a lot of people doing that, converting.
That was in 1492 when Queen Isabella finally defeated the Moors in Granada.
Yeah. And thereafter, the Inquisition came in and started rooting out people. Now, they gave the people the choice. And in those days, the person that hated the Jew, if that Jew then turned into a Christian, then they're fine. No problem at all. That's the way they saw it back then. But a little bit later on, it became more insidious as you went into the 19th century. It was a corruption. These people were corrupt. They were different. It was a racist thing. Even though over half of the Jews in Israel right now are from European descent, even though there was a real lot of admixture of Europeans into the Jewish populations at the time, they were thought to be racially different. And that's when things got really out of hand. And you had these huge pogroms and everything. And therefore, the Zionists, the beginning of the Zionists, Herzl, they had different options. They were going to go to Argentina or Uganda, but they decided to go into the old Holy Land. And that was where the beginning of the problems happened. So to have... It's very, very interesting how people now they talked about the synagogue where 11 people got killed, but that was a dyed-in-the-wool type of anti-Semite. He was like a white supremacist type dude. And the thing they don't put into this article, which they should have, is the replacement theory. Now, the replacement theory is a theory that someone out there is trying to replace white people with other people so they can control the population better. I didn't know this until last year, that the replacement theory was supposed to be a Jewish conspiracy to replace white people with other people they can control, which I think is absolutely insane. So when you have these people parading around and worried about the replacement theory, and this motivated that young man to kill, 10 or 11 people in the Tops Market in Buffalo. He was a follower of the replacement theory. He felt that Jews conspiracy were responsible for the replacement theory. So he thought he'd go and kill a bunch of black people. It's madness, really. And I didn't know that would be anti-Semitic, basically was to think of the replacement theory.
Okay, yeah. Don't know. I know too much about it, and all I can get when I'm thinking about that is stop thinking in boxes. Stop thinking in groups. We are one people. We're humans, right? Stop dividing us. That's all I can. I'm not saying you, Dave. I'm just talking about
Well, that
those that have a
segmentation.
tendency to.
Yeah. Yeah. I find it very discouraging that even our prime minister says that Zionism equates Zionism with anti-Semitism. I think it's an intellectually bad argument, for one thing. Yeah. I think it's just wrong, to equate that. It just is. I don't know. I'm very disappointed by that.
Well, it sounds.
And of course, you're going to get triple. Now, of course, when everybody says, "Oh my God," in the past few years, anti-Semitism has tripled. Well, when you look into the in between the lines and you see that anti-Zionism, it means that you're an anti-Semite. I don't like Zionism. I don't like the settler movement that's happening there. I don't like the Greater Israel idea. I think that's going to just have a great big problem for the region. And what about anti-Palestinian?
And you've talked about plenty of prominent Jews like Chomsky who oppose Zionism.
Huge, like incredible. Like Noam Chomsky, one of my favorite guys. Elam Pape, he's a Jewish writer, and Gideon Levy. I could go on. And as I said, there are Orthodox Jews, by and large, do not see. They see that Zionism as a sin. Orthodox Jews are anti-Semites because they're anti-Zionists. It's insane. Orthodox Jews feel that taking somebody else's land is a sin and that they shouldn't have done it. And this is contrary to Judaism, contrary to the fundamental ethics of Judaism.
And one of the problems that we've got around the world is that I see as what is going on here as very problematic at the moment. I can't but think about when I hear about what's going on in Gaza, when I hear about the anti-Palestinian movement in Israel, I can't but think about Jews in concentration camps in Nazi Germany.
Yeah, what's going on in Israel now is bordering on racism, basically. The fervor and hatred towards Palestinians and Arabs in general is very much similar to the hatred of Hamas towards the Israel. It's the same thing. They're taught in their schools hatred a little bit more sophisticatedly in like the Hasbro thing, and their school teaches the Joshua, when Joshua came in and took over the land of Canaanite and all this. They are definitely, and interviews I've seen, I mean, they have Jewish people spitting on Christian graves in the old city of Jerusalem. They walk by Christian and Muslim businesses and spit. A lot of Christian Zionists that go to Israel will find a lot of resistance from Jewish settlers or others saying, "You got to get out of here. We don't want you here." So the idea of bigotry is a deep one, and it overlaps. You know,
Yeah.
But anyway, it was just a very interesting article, and I was surprised they did not include the replacement theory thing, which is a motivator for baseline anti-Semites. And remember, the people that are going into most of these temple synagogues and stuff and shooting them up are basically your dyed-in-the-wool Nazi type of anti-Semite.
Yeah.
So the person that's throwing a bomb into a synagogue is not an anti-Zionist. It is born from this same European disease we've had for over 1,000 years, which is this kind of repugnant, irrational fear and hate of a different person, and in this particular case, a Jewish person.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so a couple of comments here. Whether anti-Semitism or Zionist, we're simply running out of room on this planet to each have our own space. Yeah, that is to some extent true.
Right.
Right. And John Ringo Beam says, and this relates to an earlier one, going to have slot machines in convenience stores. That might be the way to run the convenience stores. We can keep them going. Yeah.
Well, they have means of gambling in Nevada everywhere you want to go.
Yeah.
And I didn't see any in corner stores, but I'm sure there could be.
Yeah.
They are in little bars and things of that kind.
Yeah, the laws of nature withstand time itself, and the laws of man will change with the wind, says Peter.
Yes. Are we windy? Anti-Semitic, yes. So my point of bringing up both the gambling issue and the one on anti-Semitism is, are we really thinking well enough of these issues? And that's why I wanted to bring them up, particularly the anti-Semitism thing. When they talked, we saw a real explosion of Islamophobia, especially after 9/11. So there was a huge amount of Islamophobia, and newspapers were talking about that. But suddenly, there's this anti-Semitism coming up again, and I wondered where that all was coming from. But if they changed the definition to include anti-Zionist, well, of course it's going to triple, because 1 million, I think there's 15 million Jews on the planet. Well, 1 million of them are anti-Zionist. So there is 1 million more anti-Semites. The problem is they happen to also be Jewish.
Okay, we've got a comment here from a new listener. Zionists have been trying to hijack Judaism.
That's what I listened to a rabbi last night, and he was being interviewed because, of course, I was chasing down this story a bit, and the Orthodox rabbi has said the same thing. He's saying that the soldier type of mentality that the IDF has is hijacking Judaism, perverting it to the ideas of Zionism, where you have to have a military, where you have to have stuff, where you have to you have a country. If you don't have a country, then take it from someone else. He's saying that Judaism is much different. That actually these Orthodox Jews feel that they were given a duty by God to live a moral and ethical life, and to live that way as an example to others. So it's I don't know. And of course, we found out that Jewish groups within the largest growing group of Jewish demographic in Israel itself, or Orthodox Jews, who will not go and fight in the army. They don't want to do that at all. It's against their religion.
Yeah.
So what do you do when 13% of your population refuses to go off the war?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's to me, I don't think I think an anti-Semite could also be an anti-Zionist, but an anti-Zionist doesn't have to be an anti-Semite. I think that's
100%.
very clear, and I think
Yeah.
muddying the waters like this doesn't help anybody.
Yeah. All right. And I think that's where we're going to have to leave it.
Anyway, we're 8:12. We got to get going, man. You got to go.
Absolutely.
You got to go to work.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
You got to go to work and pay your taxes so I can get my OAS.
All right. Well, see you, everybody. And Dave?
Without further ado, I bid you do pray for peace, please.